What I witnessed after death was so extraordinary that it defied any preconceived notions about the afterlife. Once there, I realized that even paradise can be overwhelming. I knew beyond a doubt that I belonged in that place, but what I saw was a world that only vaguely resembled the magnificent realm people often speak of. Having experienced it firsthand, I can confidently say that most of what is told about the higher planes of existence is simply false. It was nothing like what I had imagined. These words belong to Arthur Jensen, a geologist who, by a twist of fate, found himself in the otherworld, specifically the parts of it often referred to as paradise. A serious scientist, Jensen had always mocked those who believed in the soul's existence or in the reality of an afterlife. He dismissed religious and esoteric ideas as mere fantasies. However, everything changed in August 1932 when Jensen was involved in a car accident that resulted in complete cardiac arrest. During this time, he experienced a near-death encounter, journeying to the otherworld and returning with revelations that were nothing short of astonishing. He described his extraordinary experience like this: "When the doctors confirmed my time of death, I felt my soul begin to leave my body. This caught me off because, as an atheist, I never expected anything like that to happen." According to Jensen, the moment his soul separated from his physical form, he felt a twinge of fear. He feared that if he fully detached from his body, he would die. But despite his anxiety, he realized he had no control over what was unfolding. Luckily, nothing tragic occurred. My soul, or my consciousness, my true essence, gradually floated out of my body through the top of my head, and I sensed the severing of my connection to the flesh. Arthur Jensen began to ascend, first over his own body, then over the hospital, and higher still, until Earth vanished from his view. For a brief moment, his consciousness seemed to reorganize, as though it was attuning to a new frequency of perception. From there, he witnessed a new world gradually becoming brighter, more vivid, and more tangible. Then, with another shift in awareness, he found himself standing in a breathtaking meadow. In the distance, two towering mountains loomed, their snow-covered peaks rising above slopes adorned with plants of indescribable beauty. Despite the apparent distance, several tens of kilometers, Jensen could make out every flower blooming on the mountainsides. As his metaphysical vision grew clearer, 100-fold sharper than before, he marveled at the landscape around him, filling his soul with awe and wonder. Then, he noticed a group of people, seemingly engaged in play. When they sensed his gaze, they stopped and several of them approached him, greeting him with warmth. All appeared to be in the prime of life, each over 20 or 30 years old. Arthur Jensen was struck by their grace and effortless energy. One of them told him he was in another world and explained some of the extraordinary abilities the inhabitants possessed. They were immune to fatigue, could read minds, and could move instantly anywhere they wished. But these abilities were exclusive to those residing in paradise, the very realm where Arthur Jensen had found himself. The inhabitants of this other world also shared a surprising truth with him. The common human notion of paradise as a place of eternal bliss, where one does nothing but revel in pleasure, was utterly false. Such ideas belonged only to those who had lived lives of little purpose on earth. Arthur Jensen reflected on this, saying, "In the higher spheres of the other world, people work diligently, especially on themselves, refining their personal spiritual qualities. Here, they have the opportunity to fully realize their talents and potential. There is no room for idleness in paradise. Those who expect it to be a place of endless leisure are gravely mistaken. Do not think that the higher realms will cater to your base, selfish desires. The order there is far more profound and wise than anything you could imagine." What Arthur Jensen witnessed around him filled him with awe. But as he took in the beauty of his surroundings, he suddenly experienced a strange sense of familiarity. It was as if he had been there before. He later described this feeling: "As I gazed at the paradise before me, I had an overwhelming sense that this place was not new to me. It felt familiar, as if I had been here in a past life. Then an epiphany struck me. I remembered that this was my true home. My earthly life had merely been a temporary stay, a visit to a place that was never truly mine." While in paradise, Arthur Jensen came to understand many profound truths about the nature of the other world. One realization that struck him was the reason this realm seemed eternal. Everything in it is perfectly balanced and unchanging. Unlike life on Earth, where elements mix and decay, each part of paradise is sustained by the principle of forgiveness, holding everything in place and preventing any destruction. Having cast aside his former atheistic beliefs, Arthur Jensen could not resist asking the inhabitants about God, seeking to understand the Creator's nature. To his surprise, no one had ever seen him. But this was not because God did not exist. Rather, it was because the Creator was so vast, so immense, that even the souls in paradise were incapable of directly perceiving him. Yet every soul there could feel the profound presence of God's energy, a force of love, wisdom, and goodness that radiated from him. Arthur Jensen referred to this energy as supervibration. According to him, this divine force emanates from God, guiding the universe and maintaining cosmic order. It permeates all things, which is why it is said that the Lord resides in every particle of the universe. In his time in paradise, Arthur Jensen came to a simple but profound realization. To truly understand God, one must strive to be as great as he is. This requires continuous self-improvement. And this, he concluded, was the true purpose of paradise. Not for souls to rest in idleness, but to engage in the joyous work of spiritual growth, bringing them ever closer to the Creator. Arthur Jensen once said, "Some believe in God, others don't. But when we find ourselves in a difficult situation, we start praying as though he exists. No matter how much we deny it, deep down we all know God is real. And now even I, a former atheist, understand that God is a combination of many things: unknown laws of nature, light, electricity, gravity, time, space, infinity, and life itself." Jensen also learned that not everyone ends up in the beautiful paradise after death. Instead, souls are rewarded or punished based on their true nature, determined by the vibrations they carry. After death, souls are divided according to high and low vibrations. High vibrations indicate a life filled with good deeds, selflessness, and spiritual growth, while low vibrations reflect a life spent indulging in selfish desires. In the afterlife, a soul can only exist in areas that align with its inner vibrations, like attracts like. Souls with high vibrations are drawn to heaven, while those with low vibrations are led to places people often refer to as hell. Arthur Jensen shared his thoughts on this. Some believe hell is a place of eternal cold. Others imagine it as a fiery abyss. In truth, both are correct. It is cold there, but not in a physical sense. It's a subtle, almost material cold. It arises from the fact that the souls there exist at the lowest possible vibrations, and as a result, they perceive their surroundings as an icy, unwelcoming space. Low vibrations are tied to destructive mental traits such as hatred, greed, selfishness, schadenfreude, cynicism, and indifference. These souls, even in the afterlife, cling to their earthly desires, which they can no longer fulfill in the absence of physical matter. This unquenched longing creates an inner fire, the flame of eternal dissatisfaction. As a result, while the outside of the soul feels icy cold, inside it burns with the torment of hell. The overall experience is one of suffocating darkness. Arthur Jensen also observed that these souls are in desperate need of help, as they are incapable of helping themselves. To offer guidance, higher beings occasionally descend into these shadowy realms to lead those who are ready to repent and begin their journey toward the true paradise. As he conversed with the souls in the otherworld, Arthur Jensen found his mind growing clearer. He began to understand that earthly life has a purpose. Just as this realization dawned on him, one of his new acquaintances informed him that he would have to return to Earth. This news filled Arthur with indignation. He had no desire to leave this beautiful realm. He pleaded to be allowed to stay, but the inhabitants of the otherworld remained firm. They explained that he still had important work to do on Earth. One of them added that a time of great turmoil was approaching, and many people would need his spiritual guidance. When his earthly task was complete, he would be able to return to this magnificent world and remain there forever. After hearing these words, Arthur Jensen felt a strange tingling sensation and a sense of compression, and within moments, he woke up in his body. Now, having experienced such an extraordinary journey, he no longer concealed his astonishment. He openly admitted that he was wrong about the existence of the metaphysical nature of humanity and the afterlife. With newfound clarity, he had the courage to acknowledge that even the most fervent atheists, those who aggressively deny the spiritual world, secretly harbor the hope that life continues after death, if only in some form. Despite the many who parrot the notion that no one has ever returned from the afterlife, they still find themselves drawn to the topic, reading books and watching films about life after death. If they truly don't believe in another world, why do they keep revisiting the subject? It seems to be an odd form of self-deception. Vincent Hensley is another person who journeyed to the otherworld and returned with a special spiritual mission. In 2011, at the age of 60, he experienced clinical death, during which he visited paradise. It all unfolded in this way. While working on his farm in a quiet Swiss village, Vincent was driving a tractor down a mountainside when an insect flew into his eye, temporarily blinding him. In that brief moment, he lost control and the tractor began speeding toward a steep cliff. With no time to waste, he made the decision to jump. But as he did, an out-of-control vehicle struck him and dragged him along, causing Vincent to lose consciousness. When Vincent Hensley regained consciousness, he found himself in what could only be described as heaven, paradise. The experience was beyond anything else. He later shared his thoughts. As I entered the sky, I saw many things that were unlike anything human. I sensed that some of these figures were familiar to me, as if they were dear to me. Perhaps relatives, even my parents, waiting for me. But though I felt their presence, I couldn't recognize them by their appearance. I also saw other beings made of light, and their presence brought me peace and comfort. Then something descended from above. Vincent called it the higher powers. These forces carried with them an overwhelming sense of goodness, and with their arrival, everything around him was bathed in a bright, golden light. The beings exuded wisdom and strength. They told him that he was indeed in paradise, but there was still work to be done on earth. They instructed him to share his experience through words and, perhaps more surprisingly, through paintings. Vincent was confused. He had never painted in his life, and the idea of suddenly creating artwork seemed impossible. But one of the voices of the higher powers insisted that he begin painting images of the otherworld and share them with the world. The task felt both impossible and sacred to the farmer, but he promised to do his best. However, he emphasized that the skills required were beyond his control. The higher powers reassured him, promising that once he returned to Earth, the conditions would be made right to help him fulfill this mission. Once Vincent accepted the mission, his journey back to Earth began. But before he returned, he was shown many parts of paradise, allowing him to deeply absorb the experience, especially the vibrations that filled the realm, so he could later convey them through his art. When Vincent returned to his body, he was overwhelmed by excruciating pain as he recovered from the accident. He later described this time. For a long while, the pain was unbearable, but what troubled me even more was how I would complete the task given to me by the higher powers of paradise. I knew I had been brought back for this purpose, but what if I couldn't draw? What if I failed? The worry consumed me. One night, while still in the hospital recovering, Vincent suddenly felt an overwhelming urge to get out of bed and paint. He had no knowledge of how to handle paints or brushes, nor did he know what exactly to paint, but he felt a guiding force behind him, a presence that would assist him. He painted throughout the night, and when he finished, he went back to sleep. Vincent later recalled, "Those paintings weren't really mine. Yes, my hands were the ones holding the brush, but it was the higher forces from another realm working through me. I was brought back to life with the condition that I fulfill the mission entrusted to me." From that moment on, Vincent Hensley felt as though he were a bridge between heaven and earth. He is grateful for the opportunity to fulfill the assignment given to him by the higher powers, doing the best he can. He also feels compelled to share this message. We all need to prepare for life after death, because it exists whether we believe in it or not. Each of us has a purpose in life, and we must do everything in our power to fulfill it, because it has a profound impact on what happens to us after we leave our mortal existence.